Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adam Baum. It's about 12 minutes after the hour of midnight, and welcome to another edition of the Final Countdown. A very special one tonight indeed. It's my pleasure to have one of the greatest spokesmen for a musical cause within the last 2 decades, Mr. Jello Biafra. Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks for coming up.
And, well, don't build me up too much, or it'll be, who knows, I could grow into a Renaissance fraud at this point.
We'll have to wait and see, because tomorrow marks the first day of the hearing at your...
That's not quite it. It's another technical hearing.
Uh-oh.
And it's an important one. It's where the prosecutor and our attorneys argue over a demurrer we have filed. A demurrer is a legal action you can file before the defendants have to plead guilty or not guilty and set a trial date, saying that none of this should even happen because there was no crime, Jack. Get rid of it.
Right.
And so we'll see what happens.
And all this stems from, just to sum it up quickly, a charge for distribution of harmful matters to minors.
That's what the prosecutor's calling it.
And
they decided they didn't like how we express ourselves on the Frankenchrist album and picked us to make an example of. The guy has pretty much admitted in the National Law Journal that we were picked as an example. He didn't do it to protect the kids of the woman who filed the complaint or anything like that. It's pretty obvious they're also doing it to try and make a name for themselves.
Right.
If people want to move on to higher office and as darlings of the new right, of course it helps to attract those oodles and boodles of money that the right-wing political action committees have saved up for people who will play ball with them on their terms. You know, the ones that think George Bush is too far to the left and things like that. Of course, to get this kind of money, you first must get the attention of these people and pass their litmus test. And what better way to start than to hop on the censorship bandwagon and start picking on rock musicians?
Right. And, it can also be seen as a way in because of the opposition to your songs that you've written in the past, right? It's like their new key, like a key to get in, to where they couldn't get you in the past because of...
They did try, keep in mind.
Right.
In God We Trust Incorporated, our 12-inch EP with 3 different songs and the visual artwork attacking the scam tactics of the religious right. That one was hauled into court in Ship Bottom, New Jersey in fall of 1985 on the grounds that it was obscene because it constituted blasphemy. It took the record store that was charged 6 months to get that charge laughed out of court, saying, no, blasphemy charges are what goes on in Iran. Here we have a constitution. Unfortunately, it took them 6 months to prove that, and the store nearly went bankrupt, which of course was the real punishment. What we're trying to avoid here is our label, Alternative Tentacles, going bankrupt, and thus all the records we've put out, Dead Kennedys, Butthole Surfers, Crucifix, False Prophets, and coming up, No Means No, and possibly Active Ingredients, Klaus solo album, etc. We don't want all that to go down the tubes because, of course, that's about the most effective censorship there is if people can't afford to get their art out there where people can have a chance to get access to it.
So basically, if you get convicted down the line, what it'll mean is the elimination of all that and possibly some kind of precedent.
Well, even possibly not. I mean, just fighting a case like this, we've probably gone through about $12,000 to $15,000 by now, and it has been publicly raised through the No More Censorship Defense Fund we set up to help with this, because Alternative Tentacles isn't the only people charged. There's also More Damn Records, our sub-distributor. That was Ruth Schwartz from Maximum Rock and Roll. There's a 67-year-old man whose crime in the eyes of the ever so humane city attorney was stamping out the vinyl for Frankenchrist and inserting it in the jacket with the artwork. And all these people stand to lose, and so we've formed a fund to keep all these people from going under. I think the worst possible thing that would happen in the case of a conviction is a legal precedent set that could be used on many other artists, not just underground musicians, but everybody from Slayer to Sheena Easton or whatever. And when that domino has fallen, then the people much further up on the agenda of the far right and religious right, such as bookstores, muckraking journalists, people who dare the blasphemy of teaching evolution in science books and public schools, they're under attack. Unfortunately, the religious right orchestrated a suit recently in Tennessee right near the site of the original Scopes monkey trial, where they some people sued on the grounds that books like The Wizard of Oz and many of the fairy tales we got read when we were little kids were had witches and magic and were therefore occult, and therefore, these right-wing Christians should have a separate curriculum set up specially for them in the public school system at public expense. Laughable on the surface, but they won. And, of course, that case is going into appeal, and an organization called People for the American Way that Norman Lear formed is paying for the appeal of this verdict and providing the legal help to the school board in this county in Tennessee who got sued by these people. There's another suit like that now being tried in either Montgomery or Mobile, Alabama. I believe it's Mobile. Similar suit which was orchestrated by the same judge who is trying the case, how's that for being impartial, saying that church and state separation is violated by teaching evolution and such things as mathematics in the public school because it is secular humanism, which is a catch-all term that these people use for anything that doesn't adhere to a biblical interpretation of life they would like to impose in the public school system. And they have succeeded in classifying not having religious overtones, what they call secular humanism, as a religion in itself. And again, we have an important legal case here and a predicted victory for the religious right.
Amazing. And on top of all this, you're also facing a $45 million lawsuit from the Shriners. And that's the thing that happened there was that you got written permission from Newsweek to use the photo for the cover.
Yes, we're talking about the front cover photo to the same album that is being hauled into court by the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, Frankenchrist by Dead Kennedys. It was a photo of Shriners in their little toy cars driving in a bicentennial parade in 1976, 10 years ago, 10 and a half years ago. And we had written permission, as you say, from Newsweek magazine, who printed the photo after the bicentennial and in their year-end issue. We had permission from them to use it. We paid them their usage fee, non-exclusive, et cetera, et cetera. The Shriners are also suing them, and I think they were put up to it. I don't think it ever would have looked lucrative for them to jump on a bandwagon like that unless somebody had put them up to it and convinced them that there was some terrible, wicked slander with being associated with a record album.
Okay. Well, right now we're going to get into some of the music from the Bedtime for Democracy LP. Got a song, Hop with the Jet Set, on queued up, and there was a slight delay with this record coming out.
Slight? I was hoping to have it finished by May or June of last year, and as it turned out, it came out in November in the end?
December, I think.
And part of it was the initial police raid that set the ball rolling for this case, and has disrupted my life almost constantly ever since. Began right when it was time to do, say, the vocals and the mixing and last-minute overdubs on the record. In other words, words, my department, along with the visual art and the collage art that goes inside. So the ball was in my court, and I had very little time to go into the studio and finish anything, let alone get all the visual art together because of all the time taken up with the legal problems.
Right.
Again, even if I get off scot-free from all this, I haven't gotten off at all. I've had close to a year of my life disrupted, to put it mildly, by very carefully planned legal harassment. This was in the works, these charges in the raid, for a good 4 months before the police raid. They admit they had several possible rock and roll prosecutions on the table and decided to pick us for what they called winnability, and chose the day before Election Day in the primaries last June to trumpet the charges to the press.
I guess because they're aware that you don't have the corporate lawyers that abound in at other record companies that can help them out in a situation like that. And so I guess we're going to get into some music now, and we'll be back to discuss some more things with Biafra. We'll take phone calls at 642-2957. 88.9 FM, KXLU Los Angeles. Name of the show is The Final Countdown. I'm Adam Baum, and in studio we have Jello Biafra. Let's run down what we heard there. The False Prophets with The Taxidermist from their first LP, and we heard two songs from, or rather two compositions, I should say.
Two implements of torture from
the Head of David.
Just about one of the few albums I've listened to over and over and over again this whole year. A distinctly negative and cruel band from England, Head of David.
Pleasurable feedback.
Oh, yes. They owe a huge debt to people like Flipper and the Swans, but maybe it's because finally one of these bands gets good production. I don't know. There's something deliciously evil and negative about that record. It's great for depressed moods to put that on and open all the windows and wonder what the neighbors are going to do and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that was Head of David with White Bastard, preceded by I'll Fall at Your Feet. The Depraved, another English band with Win a Million and the Dead Kennedys from the Bedtime for Democracy LP, Hop with the Jet Set. And Jello, I know you've got a very distinct style of writing music. It's not like your ordinary, singer in a band. You want to kind of run down how you...
what are you asking exactly?
Well, how do you come up with a song and present it to
well, I just kind of turn up in my head, the melodies and the pieces and the bits and pieces. Sometimes I would take things off of practice jams and arrange those into songs, such as Holiday in Cambodia or Moon Over Marin or a lot of the Frankenchrist album. But otherwise, I just... keep it in my head, get the words to fit, which can take years sometimes, like with Jockorama. Like, that came to me about the same time as Too Drunk to Boop Boop. But took a while to get it all to fit and to get the bridge to work. But then we would get together in a bedroom or something, and initially I taught the band the songs off a guitar, but I never did make two very, very good friends with the guitar, and as my ideas got more and more complicated, Klaus said, well, why don't you just get rid of the guitar and just sing them to us now that you finally figured out how to sing on key.
Right.
And so that was the way we learned the songs. And Klaus was the main interpreter for that. I would sing something and say, oh, is it this? And I go, well, not quite. Oh, maybe it's this. And 2 or 3 times later, we usually got it.
Klaus, he's the funk man, right? The man with the funk background, bass man.
Among other things, yeah. At one point, believe it or not, Klaus was also in a heavy metal power trio. And he also sang Frog, spelled with 2 G's. They lasted one show. Apparently, the leader of that band was the son of one of the Phil Spector stars, but I can't think of which one it was. Anyway, that kind of came and went.
Sounds like a Ray Milland movie.
Or Arch Hall Jr. But no, then he played in, who was it? Moon Over Miami and Airline were the two funk bands in Boston before he moved out west. I think the people from Airline eventually became Human Sexual Response, but I could be wrong.
And tell us about the record label. It's not dead, contrary to popular belief.
Well, it's been in grave danger for some time because, as I guess I didn't explain well enough earlier, if the Alternative Tentacles resources get siphoned off for legal fees to fight this court case, we can't make any more records, and worse, we can't even pay the money we owe to the bands. And I don't want to get into a position like that, which is why we have the No More Censorship Defense Fund. And the address is the same post office box that's on the back of Alternative Tentacles records. I mean, we had to act fast, so there went my little mailbox again for something else. P.O. Box 11458, San Francisco, California, 94101. Or we'll probably repeat that address at the end of the broadcast here. I guess somebody called in wondering what they could do to help in a situation like that.
Exactly.
And number one is to stay on guard. For every minute we sit on our ass, these people on the far right are accumulating more money through their religious TV shows or large corporations like the Coors Brewing family, putting money into them, that they're going to keep working. Ed Meese was just in town, what was it, yesterday, having a briefing with all the judges in Los Angeles, setting up a computer bank of convicted pornography offenders. I mean, what kind of a priority is that? Doesn't matter if we've got rapists, we've got murders, we've got rednecks with clubs cracking people's heads open, we've got serious gang problems. Oh no, it's people who might see their own body organs without Mr. Ed's permission. I mean, people who pay taxes, you're wasting your money. After all, there isn't even a computer bank on tax evaders because they're too busy busting the pornographers, aren't they? The point being that this kind of thing is being planned and going on constantly. So number one, on a local level, especially people in school, watch for things like textbooks being pulled off the shelves, Catcher in the Rye disappearing from the school library, some busybody right-wing Christian with outside money trying to sue the school district over the Wizard of Oz, things like that. Fight back. For example, the PMRC, Parents Music Resource Center, the Washington Bouffant wives who want to have rating stickers on records and ban records like ours, put them in a brown paper bag in the adult bookstore, assuming Ed Meese doesn't get rid of the adult bookstore for them, that kind of thing. They are in cahoots with the National PTA. And so any schools around here that have chapters of the National PTA, the PMRC may bring their slideshow to a closed meeting of parents, and cool parents or the students or the people who actually listen to the music have no chance to respond. I mean, these people need to be exposed. In our situation, the best thing to do to help us, the 5 defendants, is at least get in touch with No More Censorship Defense Fund. I realize Reaganomics is a fact of life, so I feel a bit... Maybe if I threatened to die by March, we'd have our legal bills paid.
Right.
But, well, look at it this way. If you would like to help Oral Roberts die, then maybe if you bought him off, he'd do it in March anyway. And
sway your funds towards the Bay Area.
Right.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I think the ultimate goal in our case, in our side, is not just to win the case, but let's face it, the people on the other side filed it to make a name for themselves in hopes of going down the yellow brick Mike Curb road to higher office. And if it becomes a liability for these people to be in cahoots with the PMRC, like the wives of one of the supposedly liberal L.A. City councilmen is, this should be a political issue. This should cost them votes. This should make them think twice about hopping on this bandwagon. And the way to do that is petitions and letters to newspapers saying, I will not support James Hahn or Michael Guarino for city attorney or any other office on account of this kind of irresponsible waste of taxpayers' money. I will not support anybody else who hops on this bandwagon. I will not buy any record with a PMRC prescribed warning sticker on it, and will boycott all releases by companies that go along with them. And the best way to get that word out is to inform the companies themselves, Warner Brothers, CBS, you name it. They're the ones. the record companies taxing blank cassettes and ghetto blasters, especially the ones that can copy tapes. In other words, poor people can't have music anymore because the record companies want more money.
Mm-hmm. 25% tax on cassette to cassette.
I think more than that.
Wow.
That's what they're doing now, is trying to tax the cassette players. They got rid of the one on blank tapes, at least for this year. But every time there's a new session of the legislature, the bill comes up again. You know how that works.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, but the point is, the people whose wives are in the PMRC, the people who go around trying to put bands in jail, that kind of thing, this should be a political liability. This shouldn't be a white horse to go riding off to get Mobil Oil money from. This should be an embarrassment. And right now, you don't see one person in some place like Congress who dares to go on to come out against censorship. No one dares do that because of the lunatic fringe on the other side who'll try to get them nuked. What we need to do is nuke the other side as best we can.
Okay. And so you've got
another thing you
there.
can do is go to, say, Warehouse, who pulled our records off their shelves after the charges were filed against us. It was at a Warehouse store that the record was sold to the person whose mother complained to the state attorney general. And Warehouse was not charged in this case, which we find very interesting and we will be bringing up tomorrow. And Mr. Guarino admitted to, I believe, the L.A. Weekly, well, they were cooperative and took Dead Kennedys off the shelves. Does that sound like Joe McCarthy or what? So there's a way to get back at that. Go down to Warehouse or write them preferably a typewritten letter, because those are taken more seriously both by city council people, Congress people, and people like Warehouse. You know, it looks more business-like. And after all, what makes our country run? Not goodwill, it's business. So type the damn thing.
So maybe even...
And anyway, but the point is, let Warehouse know you're not going to buy records in their store anymore unless they put good music back on the shelves.
Maybe even some of the larger media outlets, maybe write to them.
I'm starting to see people writing in opposing the PMRC and other people who are in cahoots with them in editorial sections, and that's a good thing to do because most of the people who are active enough to write them are the right-wingers. You know, let's put decency back in the schools. There's one guy in Midland, Texas, who mass produces letters to the editor about things like that and gets them printed all over the country. Mm-hmm. And for all anybody in small-town USA, especially if they have a Gannett-owned paper to supply their doctored news, they're going to read this guy and, oh, some concerned person from Texas, I better read this.
Right.
I mean... what we need is more information from our side to prove our point that these people are out and out lying. I mean, the kind of people who accuse Dead Kennedys of trying to promote child killing, they know they're lying, they know they're exaggerating, but people like ourselves are not allowed to speak up, like when Phil Donahue read Nazi punks off on the air and deleted all the anti-fascist references and crowned us fascists. Vic Bondi from Articles of Faith and other people who were in the studio audience tried to get him to back down on that and admit that he was doctoring something, and he wouldn't. And that's a way of denying his viewers information. For example, he had on some people from two of the most right-wing so-called hardcore bands in the entire country who are on big heavy metal record companies in New York. He had them on his show recently as representatives of the, quote, hardcore movement, and didn't let anybody from the other side speak, as one of these people justified a song about how black women get pregnant on purpose so they can have more, when they have more kids, they can collect more welfare money. And if these people are also people off the street, then they know damn well that isn't true, but they're saying it anyway as a way of getting a racial slur on a rock record, and Donahue's happy to have him on the show. 1 week later, the charges came down on me, and people called him up saying, this is news. This is the first rock prosecution since the rock censorship movement began. Do you want to talk about this? No, we've covered hardcore. Click.
Wow.
So... We have to gather our information and get it out there. That's why we have so much printed information inside Bedtime for Democracy. Not just a separate No More Censorship Defense Fund insert about our case and why these people are filing it and who the people trying to censor textbooks are and who they work for, et cetera, et cetera. It's all in there. At least the basics, the groundwork, which is, 10,000 words in itself. But even if you'd rather watch videos and not read it anyway, please. A lot of work went into that.
Okay.
And then there's another insert that's my idea of a newspaper, shall we say, and it has lots of other tidbits of information in it.
An artistic endeavor.
Yes,
Definitely.
another issue of FUCK Facts is the title of this so-called newspaper. You know, all the news that's fit to abuse. We turn yellow journalism to urine, that kind of thing. I hope I can get a second issue of that out by spring, which would be included in a proposed spoken word album taken from recordings of my live performances, like the one that's going to happen this Friday at the Variety Arts Center.
Along with Wanda Coleman and Shredder.
Yes.
That's this Friday at Variety Arts Center. And,
it starts, I believe, about 8, and where is Variety Arts? Figueroa and Olympic, I believe.
Yeah, the heart of downtown. And
Pulse, beat. Could be even better than Bard's Apollo. Who knows? And Brendan Mullins in charge.
That place is history, or maybe it isn't.
Oh, I know. It was history years ago.
Maybe they're still doing Hamlet there. I don't know. But
what I like best about that place, I, of course, was never there because we were in San Francisco, but was the rumor that Mr. Bard was buried underneath the stage.
Oh, geez.
As a memorial.
It's like almost like this place, the Ghosts ramp on the Rampage. And it's
well. Here's an argument for anti-abortion activists who have the nerve to call themselves pro-life, even though many of them are the same people who get off on death squads in El Salvador the way Jesse Helms does, and. An unborn fetus's life is sacred, but the minute they turn 18, they can be drafted and go to the gas chamber. That kind of mentality. Well, they make all these claims about when does a fetus actually become a living, breathing, thinking entity. A while back, I stayed at a house in Calgary that used to be an underground abortion clinic years ago, and not one ghost of an aborted fetus tried to scare me away from the house.
Okay. The show's the final countdown. It's KXLU Los Angeles. I'm Adam Baum with special guest Jello Biafra right now.
Here's a taste of another part of the slow but sure clampdown and corporate martial law. The way to distract people when they're winding up on the unemployment lines or suddenly can't read information in the papers anymore. Let's give them good old-fashioned ugly nationalism. Reaganomics killing you? No problem. We whooped them in Grenada, didn't we? That kind of thing. Another deadly smokescreen, kind of like Vietnam, which conveniently wiped 50,000 potentially unemployed young people, mostly minority groups who've been drafted and couldn't afford to buy their way out of it. You know, they came back in body bags, dead. Now we have a lot of talk, even after Contragate has been broken, of invading Nicaragua. And don't think it won't happen. The plans are there. The airfields are built in Honduras. You too can be Rambozo the Clown. Here's to ugly nationalism. What a find that is, sitting in the pile at KXLU. The cover has to be seen to be believed. That was Glenn Meadmore from an album called Chicken and Biscuits. We dropped the needle on a couple other tracks, and each one sounded radically different from any other song we heard. Obviously, there is sheer genius here. We're waiting for the angry calls to come in. I mean, those of you into seething macho speed metal vocals or Yeah, or better yet, if there's people like that at your house and you want to get rid of them, put this record on and whatnot.
Good old Glenn.
Mr. Meadmore, if you're listening, call in and tell me how I can get this record. I mean, this is quite something here. An even better present for the neighbors than Head of David, perhaps. Started off that section with Rambozo the Clown by yours truly. If we can get it together and send them down, there may even be Rambozo the Clown T-shirts at the Variety Arts Show.
That's right.
Drawn by Simon Bob Sinister, the singer in The Ugly Americans, who's now in Corrosion of Conformity.
Mm-hmm.
After Rambozo, we heard two adjoining tracks by a new L.A. band that just put out an album. They're called The Fixtures. Title of the record, very almost generic-looking cover, is Dangerous Music. They apparently moved to Sherman Oaks from Indiana, I believe.
Sherman Oaks.
I know.
Oh, man.
And made this album. The lyrics seem to be real top-notch on a lot of this, and some real... I've heard a tape of this before, pretty consistent songs as well. I'm not sure if they've played live around here or anything, but keep an eye out for The Fixtures. Even has a song called Welcome to L.A. It's Welcome to L.A., but now you corn dogs can go home. Tour the wall-to-wall Disneyland in a BMW. Now, that's visual. I like that. There's interesting things on here. The two songs they did were Hardcore Men of War, you know, the kind you see beating people up at Olympic auditorium shows or something like that. And that's linked up with another song about ugly nationalism called Die Globally by The Fixtures. That was followed by Child Psychology by The Detonators, and then the one and only Glenn Meadmore.
A favorite here at KXLU and amongst the Los Angeles contingent there, Glenn Meadmore.
Really?
Yes.
I have never heard of this guy, and I mean, if I'd seen this thing before, I would have noticed it immediately.
Okay. And we'll remind you again, if you'd like to catch Jello in a spoken word performance, that's this Friday night at the Variety Arts Center, along with guests Wanda Coleman and Shredder, the Boy Wonder. And you like Batman, huh? On TV. Did you like that?
Yeah, I went through a big Batman phase.
I was
for
a pretty big Batman.
I mean, any TV show with so many subtle references about the stupidity of city officials and cops can't be all bad, now can it?
That Chief O'Hara, a model. Is he the model chief of police? Or what?
Unfortunately not. I think there's far more Daryl Gateses in this world than Chief O'Hara's. We had kind of a combination of the two at that police-instigated riot on a Dead Kennedy show in San Luis Obispo, California. It was like an attempt at an LAPD punk bash riot, but it was done so badly that a lot of people were badly injured and things, but it was, you could tell it was really poorly coordinated and became a local outrage for quite some time. They even brought in water cannons from the fire department and put out windows of nearby apartment buildings and things.
Jeez.
And there had not been any fights until they started them.
That's usually the case.
That's another form of, shall we say, censorship that goes on all over in America, is selective enforcement of obscure laws on underground culture that people want to stamp out. We all hear about that happening in the Iron Curtain, but it happens here, too, and it happens a lot. All these different cities, the same kind of things are going on, and they are on the rise.
And, I mean, your shows, they get... Some of them get canceled when you don't even have 5 hours notice, 4 hours notice. The show's going to happen.
Yes, that happened a few times on the last Dead Kennedys tour. People would cite pressure from unnamed outside sources, meaning powerful folks on the right or what have you, and cancel for no apparent reason without telling the band until 6 hours before the show, in hopes we couldn't find any other place to play, which was usually the case, although in Boise, Idaho, we were greeted with that when we got there, and then found another place, and that was quickly KO'd by some obscure ruling, even that afternoon. so we wound up playing in a biker bar.
Wow. Okay. And we had a phone call here commenting your songwriting on Cesspools of Eden.
Cesspools in Eden.
In Eden.
Goes along with a song on this Fixtures album about Times Beach. This one was more put together with Love Canal in mind, but it's kind of the first in a series of ecological disaster songs.
Okay.
I mean, there's far too few underground, hardcore-typed musicians who have much of anything to say about the earth one way or the other. I guess they've been around too much concrete and suburbia. Who knows? But
well, James Watt is long gone. So.
Oh, no, he's not. I mean, his legacy lives on. I just came down here from Santa Barbara, and all along the coast, you see those oil wells out there, the same ones that tarred up the beach there. And I'm thinking, yep, there it is, James Watt National Park. I mean, like Ronald Reagan, he has become a symbol of ugly policies and misguided greed. And so his legacy will probably outlast his lifetime, especially if people like us won't let others forget about him.
Okay, Glenn, are you out there? Glenn Meadmore, we're awaiting your call. It's 18 minutes after the hour of 1 a.m. This is KXLU Los Angeles. Final countdown in session with Jello Biafra. And we're going to continue now with another song from the Bedtime for Democracy record. This is Cesspools in Eden. 88.9 KXLU Los Angeles. That's Final Countdown and Triumph of the Swill from the Bedtime for Democracy LP. And I guess we're seeing a greater move towards conformity here within the quote-unquote punk scene. I guess
it's been lurching towards that, especially in the greater LA area for a long, long time. When you have this many people in such a small, in a concentrated area, especially if they've all got access to cars, anything that's a small cult item in other areas can become a mass-marketed product here. Many of the people, even who come over from England, who attract thousands of people to, say, a place like the Olympic Auditorium or Perkins Palace, even just as far north as San Francisco or Sacramento, would wind up playing a small club. And with that many people, you are going to get sheep. But your people are going to be that way, that's their right, but when they try to force their sheep-like stupidity on other people, either through gang violence or shouting down anyone whose music or ideas are different from the formula they want to be fed, then it's time for somebody who attracts that kind of sheep to their own shows, whether they like it or not, such as Dead Kennedys, to say something about it. And I held off on songs like Triumph of the Swill, which we just heard, or Chicken Shit Conformist for a long time, but it was something that really, really had to be said. I think especially disappointing is some of the people in bands that other people who have looked up to and learned a lot from musically and lyrically. In other words, people who have been through a lot and should know better in these bands, turning around and saying, well, you know, we've been around, we want respect now, we want money, we want crossover. And so what we've seen in mass now is this revival of everything that was bad and horrible about the 70s that punk attitude. Rock was originally designed to torpedo and destroy, or at least offer a better alternative. We have I mean, possibly stupidest of all in my mind was probably glam rock. I liked some of the songs at the time, but at the same time, I knew glam rock and glitter in '74 was not going to catch on because you had to be so damn rich to afford all the clothes and all the get-up and, you know, I'm cooler than you, come suck my cigarette holder, that kind of thing. I mean, of all the uninspired dumb trends to bring back, I mean, that and sexist macho metal by people who 2 years earlier were attacking sexism in their own songs is just, for me, the music fan, it's tremendously disappointing.
Are there any, say, groups of people, scenes, whatever the appropriate word is, throughout the world that you have seen or witnessed that has yet to undergo this
Actually
What's up,
not,
Evil?
because scenes are kind of in the eye of the beholder, and like now everything is so fractionalized and factionalized. There's sub-scene upon sub-scene upon sub-scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in Britain it's the worst, since people tend to be creatures of habit anyway and might dress in the same cartoon clothes for life. It's amazing to see, say, 40-year-old hippies with children dressed exactly like it was 1968.
Mm-hmm.
Same with, like, the parents of the Teddy Boys still dressed that way
With
from
the
the
leathers
50s.
and
And, like, one person called up and said, well, aren't you going to reform the dead Kennedys after all the legal problems are over? No way. Number one, at least one person in dead Kennedys I would never dream of working with again, judging by the way he's behaved these days, but I don't want to go into that. But anyway, I think the biggest insult I could possibly give people who have gotten what they think are good things from our music and what we say and what I say, I think the ultimate insult to them would be for me to start shuffling personnel like a deck of cards and writing the name Dead Kennedys across it and playing the hits for the people who want to hear an alternative top 40. I mean, come on, can't we grow?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, there's a lot of good songs there that I'd hate to see go to waste, but how many people out there who love the Stooges or the Velvet Underground would be the least bit excited if the Stooges or the Velvet Underground reformed? I mean, would the energy be there? Would the feeling be there? Would the danger be there? I don't think it would. And I think nostalgia in any form stinks, because I think living in the past is... it's just a way of burying your head in the sand to avoid making decisions about your own future.
Stagnate.
Yeah, stagnation is death, and people on the other side, as we said earlier, are not stagnating. They're looking for ways to shut people like us up. And so why, of all things, try to go back? I mean, now there's a big movement of like 60s revival radio stations. I mean, granted, there's a lot of good music and good ideas, but most of these people want to take away the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
In San Francisco a while back, for one of these oldies stations, there was billboards around town with people like the Doors and the Jefferson Airplane, old famous promo photos of those bands repainted like Tower Records billboards, and all the members were corpse gray in the skin tone. It says, "We still play their songs." And I mean, I'm glad to hear a commercial radio station admit that commercial radio has nothing good to offer that's new, so they're just trying to at least find a time when pop culture actually had some spunk to it, even if they're ignoring better or good people now. But I mean, I like a lot of the 60s garage influenced bands that are out now, but I don't like the ones who cling to Paisley as a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's sad. It's like Sha Na Na or glam rock or something. It's hey, let's bring back the 60s without the Vietnam War, man. Wow, cool. Want to buy some expensive flowers?
It's coming back, and we've got Jello Biafra here in studio at KXLU Los Angeles. The album is out, Bedtime for Democracy, and it's got information there. If you're wondering about the No More Censorship Defense Fund, and it's all there. You want to give that address again, Jello?
I suppose we could.
Yeah.
No More Censorship Defense Fund, P.O. Box 11458, San Francisco, California, 94101. That's No More Censorship Defense Fund, P.O. Box 11458, San Francisco, California, 94101. And you can throw your name in the raffle bin, and you might win my dog Spot and a 1-year sentence in jail, courtesy of the L.A. City Attorney's Office.
And 2,000 smackers in the face there, possibly. We're looking at chicken shit conformist here. Something we were talking about earlier here. And
part of the point is, part of what got me into this kind of music and wanting to actually do it was it seemed like a wedge for much, much more. You know, the 70s were sick. The 70s was like an even more plastic version of the Eisenhower era in many ways. I mean, it was the me generation, which we have even worse now. It was just so completely boring and bad for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I was so thankful to see a way out of the 1970s. I don't want to see it come back. And so I guess the point of this song is we, of all people, were supposed to do better.